Well, we'll be pushing buttons.
All right.
Okay. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Last talk of the day. We're in bright colors to try and wake you up. I feel like I should open all of these as well so the sunshine hits us.
Clea, I just realized you almost matched the color
Yeah,
in your slide.
yeah, not intentional,
You got this
but-
bottom one covered.
But it works. So we're going to talk about vibe coding. We're at an OWASP conference, so there's been a lot of talk about secure coding and vibe coding, but this is a different flavor. This is for everyone who has to think about securing the vibe coded applications that not your engineers are writing. These are your citizen developers who are writing code and connecting to your internal systems. And what does that look like, and what risks do you need to be aware of? So this is a conversation and a talk that you can take to your executives or to your leaders when you say, like, we got to start thinking about this. If it's not happening already, it's going to be happening, especially with the pushes across organizations for everybody to be using AI in whatever form. That's not really well defined. So this is what could go wrong. And, here we are. Let me get this so we can gently move it. Okay. Who are you, Tate?
Hi, I'm Tate Crumbley. I am currently Director of AppSec Advisory for Wolfpack. Throughout my career, I've been a developer, an enterprise architect, a product security person, engineer, a security team of one. That was a fun time. So I've and I've been an engineering manager. I've been on the other side of, hey, we need you to fix all these vulns. Gives me kind of an interesting perspective. And for this talk, I've forgotten all of my developer stuff. So I thought, what if I forget everything and just vibe code and pitch Clea on it? And yeah, it seemed like a good plan.
Yeah, because I was like, hey, I need to build something. Should I vibe code it? And Tate goes, no! So I'm Clea Ostendorf, co-founder of Wolfpack. We're a boutique AppSec consultancy. I have done everything from sales to product management to consultant, field CISO, and now leading a company is a little bit of everything. Really excited to be here because I believe there's the tech and then there's the people process element, and you have to be able to communicate what's going on with the tech in order to get the people involved, and that's what I do most days. So how did we get here? We are at this insane moment in a technology revolution, akin to maybe the internet, right? Like this is huge, and it's not just the people who write code or who are in technology. It is my friends who are real estate agents who are vibe coding different workflows and connecting all of their customer information into public databases, and they don't know, right? It is our kids who are, creating videos and posting them and trying to disseminate what's real and what's AI. This is everywhere, and what's happened is we think that because we're moving so fast and we're getting the answer so fast, that we're doing it securely, right? We assume that we have the best practices. It's not. So there's a lot of ways we could have sliced this talk. The way that we're taking this today is kind of breaking this down into 3 areas. We're going to talk about critical vulnerabilities. So you vibe code something like, what do I need to think about? Your technical debt that's generated from this and how you maintain it. In a utopia of a world, we'll talk about what that looks like. And then GRC, which is no one's favorite topic, except maybe Ashley. But very relevant when you think about traceability and accountability and all the stuff you have to report to. So this world is moving extremely fast, like overwhelming most days, in my opinion. Pausing to ask questions and putting guardrails is our responsibility, because many of us in this room remember back in the day before this was a thing, and we know the questions to ask, and we know the problems that we can anticipate coming up, and we have the responsibility to challenge those who don't know. So we are the Sherpas moving. But what is vibe coding, Tate?
We're in Colorado. We know what vibe coding is, right? It's the practice of rapidly developing software through natural language prompts and agents without manually writing and usually reviewing the code. So as part of this development process, I installed GitHub Copilot, and I said, make me an app. And it said, yeah, boss, and made me an app. And it created a whole application within the span of about an hour. So it's this mirage of productivity, this increasing development rate that we're seeing that this introduces, that makes this appealing to my neighbor buddy who hasn't coded in 30 years, but suddenly can make a website or an app or something to control his business. So that's kind of our target audience here. Again, if you already have a flood of agents that you're shepherding, you have some of the Google best practices. We're going to talk about like really simple stuff and what you can do to make it better.
But the world is based on simple stuff, so we need to think about that.
Yeah, we got to start there.
Hollowing out the SDLC. The SDLC, very established model, right? Like we, for decades, have lived and experienced this, and it worked. And there were some problems, but for the most part, we knew what we were doing. Now, in vibe coding, you kind of type a few things out, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, it's live, and you can log into it, right? This is the world we're living in. Totally different than, I don't know, 6 months ago, a year ago, and it's going to continue to iterate. So what do you do when you don't really have control of that middle ground, and what do you need to think about? Now, it's, a while, so we have to think about security. Within security, try out your CIA, right? So confidentiality, what is the risk when you're hard coding secrets? The integrity, if we're not human reviewing this code, how do we know what's going out there? The availability, are we going to be impacted by shaky code, right? We need these products that we're releasing to actually be stable, right? Because that's how we're running our business these days. And then the concept of non-repudiation, the accountability that I actually push this versus a bot, and how does that play out? So the risk lies really, as we're breaking this down, into 3 pillars. You have your critical vulnerabilities, immediate, exploitable, what holes do I need to plug today, or questions to ask if we are thinking about plugging those holes. Your tech debt, because the long term, the AI is writing massive amounts of code, and we can't keep up. We couldn't keep up before, and we certainly can't keep up now. But the good news is you probably have the attention of your executives because they want you to push this forward. So can we start to think about building in some time for taking down some of the tech debt? And finally, the GRC aspect. We are seeing an immediate erosion of traceability, and then the element of right to explain, around GDPR or DORA or the AI Act that the EU is pushing. It's coming to us, whether or not it's here today or it's going to be here in 6 months. So three kind of areas to anchor ourselves. So this began because, again, Tate said, please don't vibe code something, Clea. And I said, okay, well, what happens if you do vibe code something?
Why not?
What could go wrong? Show me.
Yeah. So I've been in tech a long time. Back in the day, just compiling a big app, if somebody changed the atomic int class that the whole app was based on, and you set go, you could basically leave for the day while your poor desktop chugged and chugged and chugged and recompiled the whole app. I don't know if folks are I see one nod back there who's definitely seen that. I made the whole app in the span of about 2 hours from initial prompt done, right? So we are changing the rate that things happen. So you can create an entire app from scratch in less time, but with great power comes great responsibility. So the tools, yeah. Thinking about how many tokens I burn doing some of this stuff, it kind of feels like smashing a beer can with a giant hammer. GitHub Copilot, that's the enterprise default. Because that's Microsoft, it's kind of everywhere, right? So what we're seeing is that if you're in the enterprise and you're using Teams, as much as I'm sorry for you because I'm a Slack guy, that's probably what you have. And so I actually used Copilot for this case study because of that. Anthropic Claude Code, they're the feisty underdog, but they've been killing it. If you just in the last couple months while we've been developing this talk, they've come out with Claude Code Security and now Mythos. So very interesting company. Cursor is kind of the high growth competitor, kind of the engineer's choice. ChatGPT, hey, I need to write a script. My wife did this. And she's an anthropologist, right? She was like, they were cooking up an intern idea. She said, I think I can ask ChatGPT how to write that, and did in about 2 minutes. But yeah, ChatGPT provides models that Copilot we're just going to use, but kind of cool. But there are many other applications. So we're kind of focusing on GitHub Copilot, but a lot of these ideas are applicable across the board. So the app, I was like, what would be a good app to illustrate these? And around that time, Clea's like, you know what, we need a portal to like show the pen test for Wolfpack. And she's like, maybe we could vibe code one. I was like, yeah, no, let's not do that. But the major components that come in play for that pen test app, a JavaScript front end, a Python back end, some data storage, right? There's an API layer. What does this look like? It looks like every other web app, right? From the threat model, security concerns that come up, we've got authorization and authentication, a web interface with inputs that sets us up for possible XSS, file uploads because we've got to get the reports in and out, insecure third-party libraries because Python dependency management is a pain, and hard-coded secrets. So I picked this area because it had all of these kind of threat areas that could come up when the AI just did its best to code up the first version. So the prompt: generate a pen test report portal. Include a dashboard, a report upload feature, a search bar, and a login page. It should have a JavaScript front end and a Python back end. That's all. Literally, that's short, right? So if you've heard about agentic coding, they talk about, let's do a design doc first, and there's plan mode. All of these things are built into the tools. But if Nancy from accounting is going to build an app, or if Clea asks an intern, hey, can you make me a pen test report? Or this is probably what they're going to see. It doesn't have any of the setups for, oh, by the way, make it secure. So this initial prompt was intentionally short and vague.
Now you get to see what was done in 2 hours.
And here's what I got.
Walk us through this.
All right, so we got a login and we have an actual app screen. You've got individual reports. You can import and export a report. You can create new reports. You've got a search bar, right? Right here, I'm getting the PDF that I previously uploaded. I can change the PDF here, so there's some back-end file processing. And my favorite part is the title and the summary don't line up. Those boxes don't line up. This, I didn't ask for that. Built for modern pen test teams, polished, safe, and secure. I didn't ask for that, I just did it. I even said, I prompted it, please review as a QA engineer and fix any problems that you find. And it still didn't get the 2 fields that were misaligned.
That really bothers Tate.
It really
He hits on
bothers
it every
me.
time, like, no one cares. But that bothers Tate.
Clea doesn't care. Right.
But if you are a pen tester, like, you want to rip that app to shreds, right? Like, all the vulnerable spots. And guess what?
I got that app in about 2 hours. So
Yeah.
the demo is on the final version, but functionally the first version was pretty much the same.
So Tate vibe coded this and then said, hey, Clea, look at this. And I said, oh, it looks really good.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong? Should we, release it live? We didn't. Don't worry. We're functioning high security level. It's all good. But it truly began to form the theory of this talk. So what was introduced just on this app that we saw? Shout out to OWASP, and this has some great information. I was initially focusing more on sensitive information disclosure because that's what we were seeing with this app, but we're cramping a lot in. This is a huge topic, and we're trying to cover it, 50 minutes, and I don't think anyone ever will get there. So the main issue that we initially saw was the auth, right? So you saw that there was a place for you to log in, but there was no validation if you had the right access and what you could see, and that was just, the first blush. So, if this example did anything well, it showed you a really pretty UI. It gave you the confidence that most chatbots are giving you. Most LLMs are saying, great job, this is safe and secure. I'm even telling you it's safe and secure. But, where is actually the risk? It hard-coded credentials. There was no authorization. There was no authentication. Messy. Now, everyone in this room knows the difference between authentication and authorization, right? Basically. But do the people who are vibe coding understand that difference? And I'm not saying the engineers. I'm saying Nancy in accounting. Does she understand that difference? Probably not. So how can you communicate that to somebody who said, well, there's a login page and it worked. What more is there? So this is the analogy that I've been using. You are vibe coding a hotel lobby in a hotel. It is, you want it to look secure, you want it to feel fancy and really legitimate, and you want it to appear extra secure, so you're going to put a fancy guard in there, right? And so I walk in, I'm supposed to be there because I paid for a room, I get my key, I walk upstairs. That key can now open any door in that room. That key can open employees-only spaces. Yes, I am supposed to be in there because I have a login, but I am not supposed to be able to access everything else. That is essentially one of the massive gaps we're seeing across vibe coding. And that's in both what Tate has just tested. This is in the research that my company is doing, our company is doing, and seeing. It's just a problem. It's just a simple stopgap that we thought we covered, and we are forgetting it when we're introducing this new technology. And why is that? Well, AI wants to please you. It's this happy path, right? It says you want a pen testing portal, so I'm going to build you one. And there's going to be a place for you to log in, and it's going to be really pretty, and it's simple, and I achieved my job because I told it nothing more. So our job, as anyone who works in security or has to interface with these type of applications, is to think what happens when that guardrail stops. Well, how can somebody do something bad on a simplistic level? And again, this clearly was generated by AI. Like, it makes mistakes. It's constantly making mistakes. We have to be critical in what we're accepting and be extra critical if AI is involved because it makes mistakes. And to the untrained eye, it seems like everything's perfect. But again, we know it's not, and here are some kind of common places where these gaps are happening. But why? Why is it not perfect?
Keep an eye out. So we used a lot of AI image generation for this, as you can tell. We left a lot of those little treasures, those little nuggets of AI image generation across, just because even in the back end of the code, those are still there, right? So you can see it in the image generation, and I've got an example here that uses image generation, but it's there in the code as well. So AI and basic. When you ask an AI a basic question like that short prompt, it'll give you an answer based on its training data. All of GitHub, all of Stack Overflow, right? It doesn't know what's good and what's not. The middle, the higher probability of that training data, that is like that's your default answer. So if you're doing recipes, things like that, average is fine. But if you need something to be secure, you need to push it a little bit. If you push it too far, the lack of training data can get you into hallucination. So I got into AI image generation, local AI image generation with my own GPU. And I said, let's generate a man. And I got a man. I used the Flux One dev model. It's a good looking dude. I wish I looked like that. That's nice. So I say, all right, Flux, give me 50 men. I got 50 men. How many of them are wearing blue shirts? How many of them have like pretty short hair? Like, you'll notice the colorways are pretty much the same because that's based on the training data, right? Flux in particular, well actually, so portrait framing, green, blue colorways, they're mostly young, and a unique trait of Flux is this Flux jawline. They just have this incredibly chiseled jawline that's in all of them. So if you want to get something that's not average, you got to push the model a little bit. So I tried that, and you'll notice this prompt is much bigger than a man, right? And this is what I want you to get, that you have to ask the AI for what you really, really want. In this one, I used a much more detailed prompt. I even said, he's a bit overweight. This guy, the model doesn't want to generate overweight people. But you can even specify like what the camera type looks like, so you can get incredibly detailed specifications. This works with code as well, but it's much easier to see in the image generation version. So I learned this the hard way. The first version of the app that I generated, it had no core setup. None. Auth didn't work. It had a login screen, but username and password, just sure, whatever, that's fine. It was all HTTP, so no certificates. It had hard-coded secrets all over the place. No file upload security. You saw the PDF. That wasn't there. It used a SQLite database. Great for production. And those silly misaligned text fields that Clea can't stand that I keep pointing out. Another one of the little gotchas here. I argued with so this was actually Nano Banana, and I was like, hey, you put the screen on the wrong side of the computer, and it's like, no, I didn't. Anyway, those are here. So the idea here is that the simple prompt is basically going up to a contractor and saying, hey, would you build me a kitchen? And giving him a sticky note that says, I'd like a kitchen, please. Does that work? Does anybody do that? No, you have to draw up plans, you work with a designer, you lay everything out, you pick the colors. And so the same thing works for software. We have to specify what we actually want for the AI to deliver that and deliver it reliably. So same thing with like the like specifications and OWASP top 10. You can specify those and say, hey, I want you to do it according to these standards. Makes things go a lot smoother.
And call to everyone in this room, you probably know what you should be requiring or the standards that you're looking for. If not, there's a lot of great resources that are promoting this. Just be careful that some MD files are actually poisoned, because why not just make it more exciting? But again, you are the brains behind knowing what to ask. Nancy in accounting has no idea. She's just trying to get her job done and get brownie points from her leadership.
All right, so for the first round we have this terrible, terrible app, very insecure. How do we make it more secure? So for the first round, I actually asked the AI, hey, can you secure it? Can you take this code and actually make it secure? So a simple prompt, review the app from the perspective of a senior application security engineer, review the code against industry best practices, the OWASP top 10, list and fix any issues that you find. So I'm asking for an output, a report, really beautiful output in Markdown, and then the agent will actually go back and fix all of those items. And I had several rounds of this that I actually did with Copilot and then later with Claude to review the app. Guess what? It found stuff. Logout didn't work. It wasn't hooked up. No API rate limiting, unvalidated input, audit logging. There were lots of findings in this that it actually found, and the agent was across a couple of these reviews actually found different things. So yeah, the point is if you prompt it correctly, you can actually get those behaviors out of it, even on a basic LLM or coding bot.
Okay, yes, tech debt, everyone's favorite topic. Tech debt is like a family secret. No one wants to talk about it. Everybody knows it's there. It's just something we kind of bury and we ignore and we hope that somebody else deals with it. Feels familiar? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Okay. Well, good news is we're producing a lot of stuff these days. I mean, we are building a lot of applications and we can think of an idea and all of a sudden it's coded and it's in production and it's living, right? The reality is what's coming out, and I would love if anyone says, yes, I'm feeling this, or no, that's just fake news on this. But in 2026, today, we're seeing the first major wave of what researchers are calling the AI productivity paradox, where teams feel that they're going 20% faster today, but when they're measuring 6 months later, they're actually 19% slower. So the gains are not there because you are building things, and then all of a sudden something breaks, and you have to go back and untangle this code that no one really wrote, no one understands. It's connected to places you didn't even know, and that's just the stuff you know about, right? So we're drowning in this. Again, how do you get that across to somebody who doesn't really care? It's like, not my problem. I'm just trying to serve the business and ship something interesting and get these features out. How do you tell them we're not going to have a product to have available unless we start to deal with this? So this is my kitchen analogy. We are now vibe coding lunch. Yay! We're a high-end restaurant too, for the record. So we're doing a fancy lunch for 100 people in an hour. And we're getting food out and everybody's excited, and we don't have time to clean up all the dishes and prep the food or sharpen the knives because we're producing things. And by Wednesday, the kitchen has shut down because everything has stopped. Maybe our products are offline or they're buggy and we're getting complaints and calling, and all of a sudden everything stops. We have to start to account for this. Now, again, the coding rates are insane. Side note, I was debating getting a hamster, and Tate had hamsters. He said they're the worst animal ever.
Terrible pets.
Yeah, worst pet ever, so that always makes me chuckle. We're now moving into this sort of new world, and with any new world, you can start to build different roads, and you can make the choice to ask or push for time to budget. So there's three kind of areas we're seeing when it comes to tech debt. You have your black box effect, so that is you're missing the why. So it's taking about 3.4 times longer to debug things that were built with AI assisted code. You have the code bloat, so 48% more code than what was known or needed before. So that's a lot more for people to compile through. That's a lot more for all your scanners to keep up with. If you had a lot of false positives before, it's going to go insane. And all of a sudden, everyone knows about Mythos, and it's like, okay, well, maybe now it's real. Maybe they're real, and we really have to fix it. And like, where do you even begin? And then you have the compounding costs. So the maintenance, it's 4x levels. That's what people are reporting. I don't know if anyone's experiencing this. Raise a hand. But if you're not, you probably will be, or you'll start to hear it. So the recommendation, because AI debt is accumulating exponentially rather than linearly, the standard agile practice of cleaning up as you go no longer is sufficient, which means we need to reconsider how we're doing things. I always like to try and tie this back to like how you can get executives to care, because often, again, I just want a product that's shipped. I don't really care about how it gets done, but this is now becoming everybody's problem. Let's tie to this like thought piece that is both terrifying, but brings in some good practices. So this is from CSA, the CISO community, SANS, Unprompted, and OWASP just released this incredible paper that will scare you the first time you read it. Has anyone read this?
Mythos?
On Mythos, released on Anthropic. And it has a lot of calls to action. It has a lot of kind of fear-mongering. But again, this is being widely circulated. And my guess is if you couple this article with the facts of what you're experiencing from high level of code pushes, you can start to get some buy-in. So, leverage this, right? It's just saying you have to start to build tools and use your tools, point them at your pipelines to get ahead of this. This is a critical risk. You need to do it today. So how do you do that in practice? Tate has done it. So tell us your guardrail.
Sure. So we talked about expanding the prompt so that you can include your design constraints. You can include your security controls, your security requirements. When you develop, if you've got a best practice that's on a wiki, how many developers actually follow the best practices on the wiki? Absolutely not. All right, one guy. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I wrote them.
Good job.
We follow our own ones. No one else's.
Yeah.
So, in most cases, things that are built into the IDE and meet the developers where they're doing the work, they're more impactful, right? So that's why we run liners, we run CI/CD pipelines, the pre-check-in scripts. We have controls there that can make it better. That exists in the AI world as well, an emerging standard called agents.md. Different agents have different versions of this file. That's a standard that Anthropic is pushing. It's showing up a couple of other places. If you're using Copilot, there's a Copilot instructions, or Claude MD, or Gemini MD. Agents MD, yeah, right. And basically this is a plain text file, or a markdown file that you can read where you say, here is my architecture, here are my best practices, here are the security standards I want you to follow, and those are executed in the background with every prompt. You don't have to do anything else special. So, AI will even help you write it. And that's the biggest thing. I didn't write any code for this. I didn't even write in the git commands to like check stuff in. I had the agent do it. AI will even help you write an agents.md file or whatever it is. You can ask it. You can bake in the OWASP top 10. The only thing that the only thing I'll caution you against is that it does take up your context window. So don't put everything in there. Make sure it's relatively concise. But you can do a relatively concise one, and it'll still work. It'll still help. You can check this in across your org. Have a standard, push it up across the org. So I did several rounds with the agents, the AI review of the code. And as we saw in the Mythos thing, the snippet that Clea mentioned actually said, hey, point AI agents at your code base and see what they can find. Turns out they were pretty good. So as a backstop, I want to say I've done a bunch of rounds of agent reviews. What's left? And so I use standard tooling, OpenGrep and OWASP dependency check. Both of those are free. Tons of options, for whatever you have, but those were free. And I ran them against my code base. After the agent reviews, OpenGrep only found 4 more medium security bugs, and they were all complaining about the fact that I didn't have a certificate, so I was running HTTP. That's it, with the full rule set. That's kind of incredible to me. Like as a practitioner, that's kind of wild that going from, I found there was a bunch of stuff wrong with the app to, oh, you don't have HTTPS turned on? That's kind of incredible. OWASP dependency check, found 2 more Python packages with maybe questionable dependencies or questionable vulnerabilities in them. They were mediums. And that's it, right? So by the time I did the agent reviews, the code actually wasn't that bad. So we kind of set up the experiment with, so that the AI we set up a trap that the AI could walk into. We had auth vuln buckets, file upload, input validation problems, vulnerable dependencies. We had all of those, right? Because the first version was quite bad. But the combined review approach found 11 critical and 8 high security bugs, and then it fixed them. I didn't fix any of them. I said, hey, can you fix it? And it did. That was cool. Like as someone who has fixed a bunch of bugs, that was kind of neat.
Were you sure they were fixed?
They generally were. Stay tuned. I'll come back to that.
I can say I fixed shit all day. Been doing that for years.
Yeah. Yep. So a couple of quirks. So different LLMs found different things. In the prior talk, the gentleman was mentioning having different LLMs check things, and that's actually very useful. You can think about peer code reviews. 2 people are looking at the same code when you check in. The same thing applies here. So if you can have different agents review the code. Interesting to your point, when Claude reviewed a fix that Copilot did, it said, hey, I see that you tried to fix this and you didn't. Let me fix it for real for you. And it actually did. It actually did the fix. So Claude caught one of the bugs that Copilot had tried. Some of the fixes weren't valid, and they took multiple iterations. So the first time, they would go through it, make an attempt at it. LLMs are kind of lazy. They're fast, but they're kind of lazy, and so the fixes weren't always there. So they took a couple of iterations. The login process broke every time. So as the agents refactored the front end and the calls between the JavaScript front end and the back end, it moved the code around, but the agent couldn't tell that it was actually working. So the agents are using curl to check these things, but they're not using a browser. So things like cores and pre-flight checks that happen in the browser weren't happening there, and login didn't work. And so I literally 6 times it broke login while it was trying to do these fixes. How many times have you checked in code that broke something? A lot, right? So all of these things were actually similar to human devs, but they just happened so much faster. And that's kind of the point here. So you could argue, I could argue with the agent, hey, you didn't fix it, try it again. And it would, like a really excited intern. And that's kind of my mental model for the coding agent. Really excited intern. Yeah, boss, I'll do it. So, like humans, but faster. Takeaways, make human readable design docs. So Clea is going to get into this in a little bit, but there are a lot of compliance mandates that say you need to be able to define your requirements. The agents can make design docs. They will make the product better. If I had started that app with a design doc and said, here's what I want, here are the features, here are the standards, the output would have been a lot better. Use vinters, Vibe plus liners. We're inventing this, and we think it's cool, Vibe, liners, vinters. But yeah, agents.md or other system-wide config that are built in that won't slow your folks down, right? The big complaint with dev and engineering management is, I don't want you to slow my people down. I want them to be able to go on. Using something like agents.md or like the built-in tooling will help a lot.
Actually, this isn't good advice. I'm sorry to contradict you, but
Okay.
agents is a top level markup language file. The point of agents is basically to give top level understanding.
Uh-huh.
If you, and you actually already said this earlier, the information, you've only got so much context window, and if you put everything in there, the fact is, whatever you said at the top, don't do this, will fall off, and whenever that falls off, you're going to get bad code because it doesn't remember.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that you need to just have a top level, here's generally what I'm trying to do in that, and that is it, is because you have others that will do specific things. The more focused each one of the markup languages, markup files are, the better result you're going to get, or else you're going to be creating tech debt just repeatedly. So you basically have to have a pyramid scheme of do this, and then here's a little bit more detail and a little bit more detail, and you'll get down to a spot where you're doing very specific things.
Right.
So as an example with this, whenever you want to check in code, everybody that I work with, we've already got a skill, and that skill is document, and that will automatically go through, and every single file is diffed between what the previous GitHub push was and what you're trying to put in now. So it'll take every single file change, make an identification of what that was, what the purpose was, what it affects, what its functionality was. It has all these things that it does. Then it goes through and creates unit tests, functional tests, gives them a P0, P0, P1, P3, goes through all that. All of that then goes through version control, so it goes through and makes sure that it's got, so like there's all these things that happen. And then I've got another skill that will read those.
Let me stop you there. So, yes, right? And so if you have a product that is architected around
No, you can do this
agents,
with really
right?
small things. Like you've already got even if I'm just going to go do a calculator. The fact is that I can still use that document skill
Right.
to go do that, even that real simple one. Then I can leave it alone, and I can also do it for big projects.
But so again, the target audience here is for folks who are starting. This is
Right,
a good
but
place. This is a good place to start.
It is, but it isn't, and it's the fact that you're saying the agents is really, that is only ever meant for very high level, here's a general thing I'm doing.
Okay.
You have to get it out of that and into smaller and smaller all the way down, because if you don't, it basically, it loses its context, and then it starts getting really funky.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, because obviously, we're all learning this as we go, and it sounds like you made some mistakes, and now you've learned, right?
You got
Look,
better. Right?
Yeah.
These are things that everybody is learning, but this is one of those really painful ones where I want to make sure we're giving out good information, and any
For
of
sure.
these, and trying to say put everything into agents really exceptionally dangerous.
Definitely not put everything in there. It's
Right.
just here's a place to start. But yeah, there are way better ways to do it with more detail. Let's save the questions till the end. We got a couple more. So as a backup to that, and again, the agent review is not deterministic. It's not going to find everything, right? So the other key thing is a performant DevSecOps baseline to make sure same thing as humans. Humans write bad code. I've written a lot of bad code, right? So let's have a DevSecOps baseline with deterministic tools that make sure that we have a minimum standard for the stuff that we're shipping on top of any agent reviews.
One of the other things that you guys were absolutely spot on, the requirements. Here's one of the absolute most beautiful tricks. Anybody here like requirements? Anybody good at requirements? Here's the thing. What makes a good requirement? Just really quick. What makes a good? Sorry, my bad. You can have a meeting. Grab your
All right, we're gonna-
requirements.
Thank you.
I mean, the point you're making is this is a new world for all of us. We know best practices, and we know that we need to work on it, and how do you communicate and understand it. So
Yeah, it's evolving. It's evolving.
it's evolving
daily.
on a daily basis. All right, so here's my solution. Let's start budgeting. Now, I showed this to Tate, and Tate told me, Clea, that's insane, and a utopia that's never going to happen.
Who does two fixes tech debt?
No one does. Maybe this guy. Maybe. So the point is, we don't like to, but this is not the same world that we were living in 6 months ago, or 2 years ago, or 5 years ago. So we have to start doing it. So there's 3 companies I'm going to highlight who do this really well. Does anyone work at any of these companies before I start to call it out? I gave this talk last week at in Boston, and somebody from Microsoft who owns LinkedIn was there. I was like, yes, we do that, yeah. Okay, so Shopify, they've built a framework to build from. So similar to what this gentleman was saying, there's the building blocks from which you can use AI, you can build whatever you want, but they're pulling from this box of Legos that have the right shapes. It's defined, the golden images, it's makes their development faster with less bugs. The second one, LinkedIn, now, mind you, these companies have endless amounts of money, and so they can invest in this. LinkedIn is all about strong DevOps practices. So lots of tooling, lots of checks, totally pro AI helping them vibe code, but they're going to do a rigorous review. They've had to increase their threat modeling and architecture review like tenfold. This is what the gentleman said. A lot more architects have to be involved than previously. And then the final one, Netflix, who does amazing work with their chaos engineering, basically, and they've done a lot of studies on this, basically, let's destroy our app and see how it performs in the wild under the worst conditions, and then build from there. So they focus on building, again, a safety net. So the AI can move fast, but it can't drive off this paved road that they've defined without hitting a barrier. So if they do this by scanning their code on a simplistic level. They also have a little caveat that I don't think we call out very often. So in the Netflix ethos of engineering, you can build and you can build fast, but whatever tech debt you create, you are responsible for. So there is this level of accountability. It's not sort of like throwing it over the fence that I'll try and fix it another time. Again, utopia. So questions to ask your team. First of all, are we actually measuring that we're getting worse? You know, how do you start to even get the buy-in to do this? If we can't point to a trend line, then we're just guessing. You don't ever want to go into a meeting or trying to ask for something just guessing. The second element is asking about the accept button. If AI is writing this code and a human just skims it, then who is actually accountable when it fails? I was having this discussion with somebody, you know, again, Nancy in accounting, she's just vibe coded something. And if it becomes a data leak, yes, the company is responsible, but who within the chain of command actually has to take accountability and work to fix that? You know, start asking these questions. And finally, if our existing tools are screaming, if they're saying, you know, this is bad commits, this is risky, I don't want you to push this, do you or do we have the authority to actually stop and slow down? Again, it's a cultural guardrail. It's not necessarily a technology one. All right, everyone's favorite topic. Okay, I'm going to cover it in 3 minutes. GRC. This is your legal and existential risk. This is a huge, massive unknown that we're kind of entering. And frankly, this is all that the board cares about. If I do something, am I going to get fined? Is it going to slow down business? How do you align this? So there are 4 kind of key places to focus on. Your traceability. With SOC 2 and your ISO certs, this is where they're going to be hitting. Where did it come from? How do I know that this is what you say you're doing? The right to explanation. Big red flag here. We're seeing this with decisions like healthcare decisions, insurance, people getting loans. If AI is making those decisions and somebody doesn't feel like it was a just decision, there's lawsuits coming up now, and I think they're going to continue to grow along with fines. The EU AI Act also hits on this. You can't make decisions about, they have a laundry list of areas. This is coming up. Resilience and oversight. You have obligations to keep your products alive and running. How are you doing that? And what is that oversight? And then data sovereignty. Nancy in accounting is connecting the entire database of people's payroll. Can it leave the confines of the US? Where is it going? How do we know? I mean, these are the high level conversations that we are continuing to have, and I think, you know, it has to be part of this conversation when it comes to vibe coding. Really easy way to just think about it. You have your 3 core control areas. Here's how you think about actually implementing them. Again, this is all easier said than done, but you have to start asking the questions and pushing back because we are entering entering the unknown. All right, so we're almost to the end. Let's bring it home. Think long term.
All right, so long term, build secure defaults into the agent. Tons of ways to do that, but again, think about linears and meeting your developers where they are in ways that won't slow them down, right? So that's really the key. How's it going to be maintained? They can create tons and tons of code really fast, right? Code, and tech debt is already a problem. Clea didn't like it when I pointed that out. They're like, teams can't fix their tech debt already and we're making it worse. But yeah, how is it going to be maintained? What ecosystem and data will it touch, store, and modify? That's really big from the compliance standpoint. And then can you defend that? So again, from the compliance standpoint, who can explain the logic to an auditor, right? You get that, auditors want screenshots and descriptions. That's pretty much what they want. So who is the pilot for your pricing system, your decision system, you know, that is AI generated? Was there somebody who actually reviewed when that logic changed? Do you have a pilot who can explain that?
Well, thank you guys for being here. I hope this was entertaining, informative, and, you know, a good way to end your Friday. Any questions?
Are you going to make the slides available?
Sure.
Yeah, look, we were looking at that. We don't have, look on the Wolf. If OWASP doesn't do it, we'll put them on the Wolfpack site.
Okay.
Yeah. Your question in the back.
Yeah, agents MD, mine's getting really long, so how can I split it out? And can it, agents MD different other documents?
Talk to this guy.
He's coming for our next talk.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question about, talked about earlier in the talk, software development lifecycle, and then comparing that to vibe coding. One way I've mentioned this idea is like, okay, everybody who was writing VBA scripts and like building these giant, like cool Excel spreadsheets to get their job done 10 years ago, is vibe coding web apps now to put dashboards together and like do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
But they need software development lifecycle ideas to make that happen correctly. How do you do that, right? Because people are on a development team,
Yeah.
right? And then you have engineering controls over all that. We know how to do that.
Shadow IT.
How do you do it somewhere else?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
so
I need to know by next week though, because I got to work on this.
That is really hard. Yeah. So yeah, we are talking about that on our next thing. Like, how do you find shadow IT? You know, I worked at a company where they had old desktops running underneath the desk, and that ran the business, right? With you know, old VB stuff. So finding it is still hard, right? So can you use traditional pen testing tools, networking tools to like find these new apps that are out running around the world? That's the kind of the first version.
Yeah.
And then the second version, I think it may be helpful to just say to do some of the basic guardrails, like with the guardrail mentality. Hey, we know that people are vibe coding. If you're at our company, we use this one, and here's a sandbox to do that.
Yeah.
Make those choices easier.
You can get a list of all the agents running in the purview if you're running Microsoft. That's
Okay.
easy.
And I mean, education, right? Again, like the example
I
of auth versus,
I've had two ideas that I've floated. One of them was, well, we used to do phishing education, but now maybe everybody needs developer education.
yeah, I mean, I think it's the same thing
Yeah.
as like secure coding, like secure coding training that was so trendy 10 years ago, and
Yeah.
now everyone kind of knows inherently. I know.
Yeah,
Ish.
or
It's-
can you build that into the prompt context?
Exactly.
Like, can
That's
you
the
have a
guardrails.
stand- Can you do governance in prompt context?
Right,
Give
and
that to
you-
everybody?
Yeah, that's kind of my thought for the sandbox and that guardrail for, like, if you give some place where they can play,
Yeah.
then you can not hook it to your production database, right? You can kind of protect it a little bit more and give them some of the more secure defaults, make it easier.
You mean
Okay, good.
prevent
We're in
them,
the same spot.
yeah. You're talking about preventing them from installing locally.
Well, it's not preventing them from that, but it's saying, we know that this is gonna happen, here's a place to do it. Right? Because that works so much better than saying, don't click the link, right? Yeah, the negative training is hard. Yeah, and I think, we've seen how that's worked in phishing. So just saying, we know that this is gonna happen, do it here, and we've kind of built it so that you can play with it, probably a better way to go. That goes back to Tanya's talk this morning too, on like, make the default easy for them.
Are you seeing Vibe entrepreneurs who have Vibe coded apps coming to you for security support?
No, they should be. Like, I mean, yeah, they should be. We are seeing more projects from enterprises with Vibe assisted or Vibe coded apps, and we're testing them, and it's basically everything Tate went through. So if it's in an enterprise and people are aware of it, they're usually getting some eyes on it and testing it, especially chatbots. But like rogue entrepreneurs, because again, unless you know what to look for and you know the pitfalls, I don't think people assume that the AI is doing the right thing, and we know it's not,
Yeah.
unless you have the right
I mean,
prompts.
from the accounting side, I'm hearing stories of people who Vibe code something, they're successful enough to make some money, and then now they need to pay taxes on the Vibe code.
Yeah. There was an example I found where somebody vibe coded a crypto trading app, and it was generating a lot of money, but the creds were hard coded, and an attacker got it, stole all the money, and he's like, oh, if I only knew to rotate my creds, it would have been fine, because he just didn't know. It was just, that's not where he would focus.
But I would ask you guys, would you take on a client like that who knows nothing of engineering or cybersecurity and has built themselves up to something successful, but
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
know what they're doing yet?
Of course. I mean, that's sort of the most fun. That's a blank slate. That's your helping. That's collaboration. That's not demanding issues. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, so send them my way. We're accepting clients.
Asking for a friend.
Yeah, asking for a friend. Well, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it.